black thing go from left to right, and I thought, I'm going to die out here. No one's ever going to know. I couldn't believe what my eyeballs were showing me. I'll never forget how evil the eyes were. It was horrible. I mean, I've never seen nothing that evil.
It ran towards me at a rate that I can't even explain. Turned and stared at me, and this look of, I just want to kill you. I want to say it was human, but it wasn't.
He was yelling at me to grab a gun. I was like, for what? He said, just grab a gun. And there's footprints all the way to the door of my house. It had went inside my garage, all the way to the door.
911, what are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Zio!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
You're listening to Sasquatch Chronicles. Check us out online at sasquatchchronicles.com. If you've had an encounter, email me. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you tonight. Going to be speaking to Clint. And Clint was put in a position where he actually shot one of these creatures. Very fascinating account. He actually still has the evidence from shooting this thing. So we'll be talking about that tonight. And then I'll also be talking to Charlie Raymond, who is the founder of the Kentucky Bigfoot Research Organization. A really nice guy, a really cool guy. I've been following his work for a long time. You can check out his website at KentuckyBigfoot.com. And Charlie will be sharing some encounter stories with us tonight, stuff he's investigated, stuff he's looked into. Should be a great night. And then we'll wrap up with Russell Acord, who will be talking about the International Bigfoot Conference. I hope a lot of you out there, if you're listening and if you're able to, if you can come out to the International Bigfoot Conference, it's in Kennewick. September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Might actually be August 31st, and the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. I'll have to double check that, but I know it's during that weekend, and it's always a good time out there. So we'll be talking a little bit about the International Bigfoot Conference tonight. If you get a chance, go to the internationalbigfootconference.com, get your tickets. Bob will be out there, Bob Gimlin. A lot of people show up to it. Woody and I will be hanging out there. If you're a poker player, come on by and play some poker with us. We had a good time last year, and everyone who was at the poker game knows, they know. And we played, we played till like 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So if you get a chance, check it out. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And if you get a chance, go to sasquatchchronicles.com. Check out some of the member shows. Become a member, help support the show. I know episode 403 and 404, Encountering the Strange, I had Sue on. Sue shared a lot of strange encounters, and it was a great show. So, Sue, if you're listening, thank you so much for coming on. I talked about some phone calls I've had off the air that you don't get to hear on the air. So if you get a chance, check it out, sasquatchchronicles.com. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Clint to the show. Clint, thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you being here. I know when you sent me the email and you wanted me to have a bullet tested for DNA, I just had to hear what happened to you. And I know it's kind of hard for you to talk about. I know you really haven't told anyone what happened. So tonight, just take your time. It's just a conversation. It's not an interrogation. And, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this. If you would you kind of start from the beginning and just kind of walk us into this whole encounter? How did all of this happen?
Well, my dad purchased 120 acres, and it's in northeast Arkansas. It's up in the Ozarks. We just purchased it within the last, I think about 9 months ago. And I've listened to your show for about, since 2015. I worked for a steel mill over the Mississippi River, and we had a guy fall in in the river unloading barges, and I always thought there was a Bigfoot, but I always just thought it was more, in the Pacific Northwest. I stumbled across your show after we got to looking for this guy that had fell in the river. I was in the brush walking the banks of the Mississippi. There was 5 or 10 of us looking while they were in the boats, and I come across a footprint that was just entirely too big for anybody, just a human. I mean, it was probably about 6 inches wide and probably 14 or 15 inches long. And I couldn't explain it, So I got to looking on the internet and I stumbled across your show, and I've been listening ever since. But like I said, I still never thought they was really around this area. And we were deer hunting back, I believe it was on October the 29th. It was right before Halloween. And then we had there was a private gun hunt, private land, and I get on my deer stand long before the sun comes up. Me and my dad, we've always done that, and he didn't go with me this time. He had overslept, and I heard something out in front of me in the dark. Still hadn't gotten daylight yet, and it sounded like a raccoon or something coming down the tree. You could hear the bark. You could hear scratching on the bark. That's the weird thing about it is I personally believe this thing was in the tree. It came down out of the tree. There was a cedar tree about 35 yards straight out in front of my deer stand, and it's huge. It's bigger than most cedar trees. Most of those cedar trees have been cut over. But I still hadn't seen anything. This is probably 30 minutes before it even gets daylight. Well, I start hearing not a whoop, more of a, it was a whoop, but I don't know how to explain it really. But something was whooping back, and I personally thought it was some guys on some land over close to us, trying to holler back and forth at each other. But it gets daylight, and I keep seeing something moving, but I can't make it out. There's a lot of, like I said, there's cedar trees everywhere. Finally, I see an arm come out from behind the cedar tree, and it's a hand. The hand touches the front of the cedar tree. I start to freak out because there's a few black bears in the area, but I've only seen one. I'm 31 years old, and I've only seen one in my life. And I didn't really know what to do. I was just sitting there, and I was going to get my phone out and try to call my dad. And then I start getting this grunt, and I can hear something off to my left getting closer. I'm sorry. It's the first time I've really ever told anybody about this.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. I get it completely.
Well, so I keep watching, and I'm thinking, this has to be, this has to be somebody messing with me. I keep looking, and finally it gets really good and light enough that I can tell that this arm is entirely too high off the ground for it to be anybody messing with me in a suit or anything like that. And I'm just in shock. I don't know. I'm just not expecting it. Nobody expects to see anything like this. It finally peeks out around the tree. I almost dropped my rifle. I mean, the shoulders were I'm a large man myself. I'm 6'3", 6'4", about 275. I mean, I'm a big man. And I didn't think that there was any way that gun that I had would even, and it was 7 mags. Those things will shoot as far as you want to shoot and will take down anything. I didn't think I had a chance at taking this thing down. So I raised my rifle, looked through the scope, and when I do, that's when this god-awful scream comes out. I mean, just, I don't know how to explain. You could feel it in your chest. I mean, it vibrated. It vibrated my chest. I'm just, I'm terrified. Then it starts making these, I don't know how else to explain it besides kind of a monkey sound. but it was staying behind this cedar tree. I mean, I'm sure you've seen plenty of cedar trees. I mean,
Yeah.
they're huge and bushy. I never really got a great look at the face, but the legs on it, I could see the legs perfect, especially the left leg. And like I said, the left arm, the hand was around. I didn't know what to do. Like I said, we started making these sounds, and something off to my left starts making sounds back to it. And by this point, I'm not gonna lie, I thought I was probably gonna die. So I didn't know what to do. I'm sorry. I'm just
No, it's
like
normal.
I said, I've never told anybody before.
Yeah, no, I can imagine, especially when you're seeing one and you're hearing it communicate with another one. What's going through your mind at this time? I mean, obviously, another hunter doesn't make sense. A bear doesn't make sense. What's kind of going through your mind?
I knew I'm thinking Bigfoot. I mean, I have that. Well, I'm just thinking. There's no way if I try to do anything, it's going to get me. I mean, it's too big. I played football. I know how fast things can move, and there's something this size. There's no telling how fast it could have been on top of me. I'm talking 35 yards at the most. So this stare down goes on for 25 minutes at least, and I finally see the other one, just a blur off to my left. You could hear it coming up through a creek bottom, and I'm guessing this one was getting, the whole communication. I'm guessing it was getting it to come in from off, like I said, to my left, kind of behind me. I didn't know what to do, so I keep sitting there, and every time I moved, it would move back behind the cedar tree a little bit, and then it would come back out, move, come back out. So, like I said, I pulled my gun up finally, and that's when it screamed that. It was the most god awful, just the scariest scream I've ever heard in my life. I mean, if you ever, I'm not a big fan of the show, but my niece loves to watch it. Have you ever seen Finding Bigfoot?
Yeah, of course.
You know the big guy, Faye, what's it, Bobo?
Bobo,
Okay.
yeah.
That stupid call he does. Well, I don't mean the guy may be a nice guy. I'm just saying I get stupid it. The way they do things. I don't think anything would. You're gonna scare off anything. I know how to. When I'm hunting, you're as quiet as you can be because you don't go out in the woods with fireworks and stuff like that. But anyway, it was kind of like his call, but more of a grunt, just guttural scream. So at this point, I'm thinking I'm kind of in a fight or flight mode. I mean, what am I supposed to do? I'm trying to figure out if I can kill this thing. If I can, there's no way I'm getting off this stand. It's a 16-foot ladder stand. It's going to take 30 seconds to get down a stand without breaking your neck. This thing could be on me in 2 seconds if it wanted to be. I go ahead and pull my gun up, and I'm looking. I want to see the face. And all I seen was the left half of the face, part of the nose. The eyes were, they felt like they were just staring through me. The left eye. There was some white. It was a big, huge black eye, but there was a little bit of white around it. I was shaking so bad. You hunt, obviously. Buck fever has nothing on me. It's when you're scared to death and you think you're going to die. I mean, so I thought I've got to do something. I have to do something. Well, my phone vibrates, so I'm going to try to get my phone out. I'm keeping the gun, put my right hand up, and I'm trying to get my phone with my left hand. This thing jumps from that cedar tree to another, and it's probably a good 8-10 foot distance to the other tree. And it just a hop, and it was behind it, and I couldn't see anything at first. The other one's over here making racket. and I'm just freaking out. I drop my phone. And when my phone falls, I don't know if it broke up, if it had a piece of wood in its hand, or, a stick, what, but something just snaps horribly loud when my phone hits the ground. So I'm thinking, hey, it's fixing to get me. Well, it's not coming out from behind the tree again. But it's there. There's it can't get out of my sight. I wouldn't be able to see it clearly if it took off, but I would be able to see it. It's still behind this tree. But I'm wondering if it hadn't tried to climb up the back of this tree, because I truly believe that thing was in that cedar tree when I got on my stand, because it had to have come down that tree. You've heard squirrels or raccoons go up or down a tree the way the bark crackles.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That's what I was hearing for 5 minutes before it got to the ground. And it wasn't a raccoon. It was that tree. I couldn't see it. Like I said, it was dark at the time, but I believe it was in that tree. So I go ahead and pull my gun up, and I'm just waiting for a shot, but I'm scared to try to take a shot to the chest or the head, because if I miss, I don't know what's going to happen. My thought was, hey, anytime you hear anybody talk about getting in a fight, even the biggest man in the world, you hit him in the knee, they'll go down. So that's my thinking. And it finally tries to peek around the tree again, and I start to see the left foot, and that was the biggest foot I've ever seen in my life. And the left knee comes out from behind the tree, and I put the scope right above the knee, and I fired. And the most god-awful racket, it screamed. The other one took off in a shot straight toward it at an angle from my left, and that one went tearing through the woods, just breaking limbs, breaking trees down. But I hit it. I've got the bullet. It stuck in a little white oak tree, a little sapling, probably 4 inches around behind it. I don't think I hit it in the knee. I think I hit it above the knee, because it ran too good. It was gone, and within 2 seconds, it was out of sight. It was gone, and I sat there shaking, and I couldn't move. I was numb. I was literally, my legs, there was no way I was getting out of that stand. I sat there probably an hour and a half to get my composure, and I'm not gonna lie, I cried. I sat and I bawled. I cried like a little baby. So I finally get myself down out of the tree after I get composed. I get my phone. I call my dad. I did not tell my dad. I still haven't told my dad what I shot, because I don't know if he would believe me. People just like to make fun.
Yeah,
but
no, I hear you. Was there any blood? Did you go back?
Yes, there's blood. I called Dad, and it took my dad about. I live an hour and a half from where this happened at, but Dad just retired and moved up here. It's in the Ozark Mountains. I don't want to say exactly where. I really don't want my name, like my actual name, on the radio.
No, I understand.
Just for the simple fact of my job and then my family. It's about 15 to 20 minutes away, and I just called him, and he knew something was wrong. And I said, I shot something. And he said, well, what'd you shoot? And I said, I'm not real sure, Dad, but it was something big. And he said, oh, you probably shot was it a bear? And I said, Dad, I don't know. It was right after it got daylight. But I wanted to get the hell out of there. I'm not going to lie. I just wanted to leave. But my dad shows up, and he wants to try to track this. I'm scared to death. Thank God the blood stopped after about 15 feet, 20 feet, the blood stopped. There was no more blood, and I don't know if that's because it can jump that far, when it's running. I don't know I don't know what the stride was. I just know in 2-3 seconds tops, it was gone. I mean, and it had to run in that 2 to 3 seconds to get completely out of my sight, even through the brush, 50 yards to drop off the backside of that hill down to a creek. And it covered that in literally 2 to 3 seconds. I mean, but the blood stopped. Like I said, the blood, I think after one hop, I don't know how the blood stopped. I don't know, but there was no more blood. But I dug the bullet out of the tree. Dad asked me what I was doing. I just said I wanted to keep it. He thinks I shot a black bear. And there are marks on the tree. I need to go back up there. I haven't went back. Dad asked me why I haven't come up, and I've made excuses all deer season. I can't right now.
And no, I understand. And I can understand shooting. People don't understand, when you're terrified, there's nothing worse than a guy that's armed that's terrified because you don't know how. He's very unpredictable at that point because, if you move wrong or if you say something wrong, he's going to shoot you. And I would imagine that was kind of the situation you were in, to where, you're so terrified you were going to shoot this thing, whether it backed off or charged you or whatever. I get it. I completely get it. Why did you shoot it above the knee?
I was just afraid that I personally was afraid. I'm a great shot, but I was afraid that if I knew if I shot it in the chest, it wasn't going to take this thing down. It was entirely too big. I'm talking. I think, honest to God, I think the shoulders were close to 5 feet wide. Just from, and I never seen from one shoulder to the other. All I could really see was the left side, but I know how wide that tree was. And just the size of the left arm alone and the part of the chest that I could see was just unreal. It doesn't make any sense to see something that big. And I was afraid if I took a chest shot, if I took tried to take a chest shot or something, that there's no way it's going to take it down with one shot. It's going to be on top of me. And if I miss with a headshot, what happens? Because there's another one right here. If I killed this thing and there's another one right here, if it's dead, it's not trying to help its buddy. It's coming for me. That was my thinking. I was thinking that if I hit it in the knee, it couldn't run and get me. That was my. No, it would give me a chance.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense to me.
I just fired because I thought it was going to be me or it. I really think that, like I said, it screamed at me, and it never tried to charge me or anything. But I don't know what was really going through my mind besides other than thinking that this thing's here for a reason. What other reason is it here for besides to hurt me? I mean, why isn't it going on? And like I said, when I raised the gun the first time, that scream, I'll never forget it. I mean, I woke up sweating for probably 2 weeks, having just this horrible, that scream, having a horrible dream and waking up sweating. I mean, I love hunting, and I haven't been back in the woods. I haven't deer hunted the rest of this year. I like taking my little girl. She loves to hunt, and I've made excuses since October.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. I mean, I get that completely. It's terrifying to run into one of these things, especially when you're hunting. Let me ask you, but you never got a good look at the face. It was mainly the body and everything else.
The cedar tree was real. Like I said, it's a cedar tree. I mean, they're huge. Most of them have been cut over, though. This one's really big. But I did, the left side of the face is what I could see just when it peeked around the tree. When it jumped from that cedar tree across to that other tree, there was just, it was a blur. There was no, I've never seen anything clear distance like that. I mean, with one jump. I think when I seen it staring at me was the point I thought I had to do something. The eyes, I don't know how to explain the look from that eye staring at me. Just felt like it was like it was looking into your soul or something. I don't know how to explain it. It just burns a hole through you.
How long ago did this happen?
This past October.
So very recent, very, very recent. And you hadn't seen anything before in your life prior to this, correct?
No. Like I said, I've seen that footprint on the Mississippi River, but I've just, like I've said, I've always thought, I watched Legends of Boggy Creek when I was younger, and I've just always, I've always believed that there's something out there. I mean, we just found the Billy ape, and that's a huge monkey, and they just found it for the first time, however many, 3 or 4 years ago. I've always thought something like that, but I never thought they would be around here. I just didn't. I thought I just assumed that they always had to live in a cave or something for them not to be found. For us not to find one already. My body, something. I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that there would be one just right here this close to home. I just never, in my wildest dreams, thought I would see anything like that unless I ever came to California or something. I never thought I would see anything like that.
Yeah, you wouldn't think so. There's a ton of reports out there, though, of people running into these things. And, I can't blame you for shooting. I think I probably would have, too. Especially when you're in a tree stand, you feel a little bit like a trapped rat, up there. What are you going to do? Get down and run? There's not a ton of options when you're in that
16-foot stand. And,
right.
I mean, there's no, unless you want to jump out and try to break a leg. I mean, then I've never been that scared in my life, and it's ruined me from hunting this year. I want to go hunting so bad, but I haven't been back. I don't want to go. I don't want to go in the woods right now. And it makes me feel weak. I don't know how to explain that either.
No, I understand that.
I'm a big man, and
no, I understand that. It hurts our pride. It hurts our pride to say we're scared to go out there and run into something. And but everyone's a big tough guy until they run into one. Everyone always says, "Oh, I would pull the trigger." I'd put this thing down. And
but I had the chance. And I didn't think. And I had, like I said, I had a 7 mag in my hand, and I don't think it would have. I don't think it would have done anything but piss it off.
Well, I think you did more than what I'm trying to say is a lot of people say they would do this, they would do that. And I guarantee everything you think you're going to do, you'll do nothing of when you run into one of these things. Because they're terrifying. It's terrifying.
Like I said, my phone was right there. But I was too scared to even reach in my pocket and try to get a video or any, all I was thinking was, how the hell am I going to get out of this? I mean, what am I going to do?
Let me ask you this. What do you think Sasquatch is? What's your honest opinion?
I think it's an animal. I mean, I don't think it's a monkey. I mean, it's smart. It's got to be something like that, but it's smarter than it was communicating with that other one. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was obviously getting that other one to come check me out, whatever. I don't believe it's. I've heard plenty of people say that they, read comments on the internet where they think it's an interstellar being or whatever, or UFOs. They come when there's UFO sightings stuff. I don't think that. I think it's a flesh and blood. I mean, it's flesh and blood. I mean, but I had to tell somebody, and I've contemplated it, and I finally decided I was going to email you. And
yeah, no, I'm glad you did, man. And I agree with you. I think it's flesh and blood, but that doesn't mean it's interesting. I asked the guy the other day, I won't say who it was, but I asked him, I said, do you think that it's natural? And he said, yeah, I think it's flesh and blood. And I'm like, that's not what I asked. Do you think it's natural? And he was like, no. I tend to think that these things are unnatural, but who knows what I think? Who cares what I think? I could be 100% wrong. Honestly, probably harming it and not killing it probably saved your life. I think if you would have executed this thing, shot it through the eye, like I was saying, that other one would have came in, I think you would have had a long walk back to your vehicle if you would have made it. You know what I mean?
That's the whole. I just knew something bad was going to happen. I just thought, if I can hit this thing and make it think twice about doing something, maybe I can get it to run off and I can get the hell out of here. And then my dad just has to go look for it. I mean, but like I said, I didn't tell him what it was, what I seen, and I still haven't. I told my wife, I don't want anybody thinking I'm crazy, you know what I mean? It's because people can just be crude. I mean, I really would love to get this bullet checked out.
Let me make a few phone calls, and then maybe we can arrange for you to have it mailed. Let me make a few phone calls first. I don't want to have you go through all the trouble of sending it if they can't get DNA off of it, and if it's not worth getting DNA off of it.
There's hair. There's hair on it.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, let me make a few phone calls. I'll have to get back in touch with you on that.
I thought about it and like I said, the only thing that I did do, my dad asked me why I was doing it, is I've never touched the bullet with my fingers. I used my knife and I didn't drop it. I put it in my hunting bag. I have a plastic thing you put your gunpowder and your bullet in for a muzzle loader. And I had a brand new one that had never been used. And I held it underneath it, and I got that bullet out with my knife and got it in the plastic. So, I mean, I don't think it would be contaminated. I mean, I really don't. But it has hair on it. It wasn't. It was more black. A blackish gray. It had a gray tint to it when the light hit it. It had when the sun came up, it had more of a grayish. It wasn't red like you hear a lot of people say, auburn or anything like that. This thing was black with a gray tint to it. Maybe older. I don't know. I don't know if who knows if they get gray hair if they get older like humans do. I mean, I don't. It just had a grayish tint to the black. But there's hair, like I said, there's hair on the bullet, and I personally think it's some bone stuck in one of the grooves on the bullet when it pancaked out. But it may be part of the tree. It may be part of that oak that it hit.
Let me make a few phone calls. Let me see if the DNA is still decent on a bullet like that. I would imagine it's still good, but it's out of my wheelhouse. You know what I mean? I can't tell you. Well, too much time has passed, or I don't know. I honestly don't know. So let me make a few phone calls.
The height on it, I didn't get to tell you that. I don't think. I'm going to say it was between 6.5 to 7.5 feet, but where the bullet went into the oak tree, it was, like I said, I was aiming at its right around the knee, just a little above, and it was right. The bullet was right where my belly button is, and I'm 6'3", right around 6'4", and the bullet was, like I said, it was belly button high. So that's how much taller the leg was than mine.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a pretty tall individual.
I just wish I could have. I wish I could tell a better story than tell it better.
No, it's great. It's like I said, I think there's probably more hunters in the position you were in, Clint, to be honest with you, than you realize. I think more people have taken shots at these things. Everyone always says, oh, the hunter looks at it and says it's human, they don't shoot it. I tend to disagree with that. I think there's a lot of hunters who have shot at these things, and most of the time have probably hit these things. And I think a lot of them do it out of fear. They feel like they're in danger for their life. They're in awkward positions, like you are 16 feet up in a tree stand. And, by the time you hit the ground, you take off running, your chances of making it back to your truck if this thing wants to run you down are slim to none. So I don't blame guys for taking shots. I mean, there's probably more guys who've taken shots at these things. I just wonder
if the two guys that my dad purchased the land from were adamant about getting rid of the land. we got the land. Dad paid $1,100 an acre, and it should have been around $3,000 an acre. And that's why we wouldn't pass it up. They left 2 campers. Now one of them was old, and I mean we had to drag it out. But one of the campers they literally didn't come back and get their stuff. They left stands. Now they never acted funny toward Dad, or never, unless my dad didn't tell us anything. They never. But my dad got it. It was a steal on the land. I mean, I just wonder if they hadn't had some trouble, and that's why they wanted to get rid of the land.
Makes sense.
And so fast.
Yeah.
I would like to get in touch with the guy.
It makes sense.
Why would you sell land like that?
Exactly.
Unless $2,000 an acre cheaper than what you could get out of it, unless you were just that desperate to get out from under it and take your losses and move on. I mean,
yeah, makes you wonder, doesn't it? You know, they saw something though. If they're up and leaving all their stuff behind and selling it for, they
left. I mean, I understand when people build a homemade stand out of 2x4s, those old school deer stands and stuff. There was 2 of those, but they left 4 metal stands, 1 tripod stand that I know probably cost $1,000. And like I said, they left a camper. I mean, they left feeders. They wanted out from under that land. And I would love to ask the guy, because there is an old man. He's probably in his mid-80s that lives a quarter mile through the woods. You have to take an old logging road to get back to his house. I mean, he lives back with nobody around. I would like to talk to him, but I don't want to, I don't want to sound crazy to this man either, and him think he's got a bunch of nut jobs that bought the land next to him.
No, I understand. And I wouldn't hold too much guilt for shooting. I think most people in that situation, most people will fire when they're scared. Most people will shoot when they're scared, and that's the worst time to shoot, is when you're scared. When you don't have the clearness of mind when you pull that trigger. But, and I don't blame you for shooting. I probably would have shot too. I think you made a good decision in shooting it above the knee. That way it stumbles out of there, and it's probably all the rest of them. There's probably more than just 2. There's probably a lot more than just 2. The other ones you probably didn't see. But, if it stumbles out of there and it's bleeding all over the place, they're probably going to, tend to that rather than tend to you. That's
what I was hoping. That was my hope. I just can't believe that it took a 7 mag round to the leg and the thigh and still cleared that distance that fast. I mean, that should have put a hole. I mean, a 7 mag would put a hole in anybody. I mean, the exit hole would be probably close to the size of a baseball. I mean,
at least
it's massive, and that thing was gone.
It's kind of scary, isn't it?
It's ruined me from hunting so far. I really want to get back in the woods, but I can't yet. My 6-year-old daughter, just like I said, she loves to hunt, but I don't want to take her up there. I mean,
no, I don't blame you. I wouldn't go back to that general area, but maybe a different area. Maybe take your daughter if you want to go. And
right. Well, we have some land. We own, like I said, my family farms about 8,000 acres. We have some land here in the flatlands, and I wouldn't mind taking her. But just this year, I haven't had the want to. After that happened, I didn't want to go back.
Maybe take the year off. You know what I mean? Take the year off and collect your thoughts, and then maybe go back at it next year. You know what I mean? Might be the best way to go.
But I'm just wondering if I did. My dad's a large man. I mean, my dad's 6'5" and 230 pounds, but he's 62, and I need to tell him, because he's up there by himself a lot. I need to tell him, because if something happened, I would probably lose my mind. But I don't know how to go about telling him what I actually seen that day, because he thinks that and he's told a couple people that he's pretty sure I shot a black bear up there. But it wasn't a bear.
Maybe just pull him off to the side. I don't know what your relationship is with your dad, but, maybe just pull him off.
We have a great relationship.
Yeah, just pull him off to the side and say, hey, listen, I don't think it was a black bear. Here's what I saw. Here's what I shot. And here's what happened. And just see what he says.
Do you, when you had your encounter, did did you stop going to the woods for a while? I mean,
oh hell yeah! I sold all my hunting gear. I sold about $10,000 worth of hunting gear for about $100. I gave away most of it rather than selling it. I wanted nothing to do with the woods. I wanted nothing to do with hunting. And I loved hunting. You know, I was the type of guy that would go and I'd sleep. You know, they used to call me the polar bear because I didn't need a tent. I didn't really care for a sleeping bag. I'd just go sleep out in the woods. You know, never bothered me one bit.
My little brother's like that. He takes a hammock.
Yeah.
One of those ones that covers you. You know, you can fold it over you. And
absolutely.
Be covered.
Yeah, I mean, and prior to my encounter, I would have had no problem with that. I would have had no problem sleeping out underneath the stars. I had no problem, you know, putting together some ferns and making a little bed for myself, and didn't bother me one bit. And then after my encounter, it won't happen. You won't find me sleeping out there in a tent in the middle of nowhere anymore. It won't happen.
I'll never go back bow hunting without a gun with me too. The game wardens would just have to write me a ticket because I'm going to carry a gun with me. I mean,
yeah, but the thing you have to keep in mind too is you can't let these things take that from you. You can't. I've gotten to the point, I think, now to where, you know, for me, I think whatever happens, happens. You know what I mean? If these things are going to get me, they're going to get me. If they don't, they don't. I can't live my life in fear of being out there. You know what I mean? I'll take precautions, and I'm smarter than I was before. But in the same breath, it's so hard to have these things steal that from you. You know what I mean?
Right. And what I think, I don't know what you said. Like I told you, I only seen really the left side of the face. I just barely seen part of the nostril. It seemed bigger and flatter on that side. But there wasn't as much hair on the face as you would think if, you know, about like a monkey or something. There wasn't as much hair on the face as you, like I said, as you would think you would see on a monkey or something. The hair was actually more back, kind of like someone had just freshly shaved. I mean, there was hair. You could see it sticking out a lot, but it was on back, way back past the cheekbone.
What was the skin like?
Kind of a grayish, more like, you know how you get ash after you barbecue from charcoal? That,
yeah,
a grayish white, like dark. It was dark. I mean, it was a darker gray, but it had a whitish tint to it. But that could have been the way the sunlight was hitting it. But it was dark skin. I mean, it didn't have a tan face like you would, or, you know, like our natural skin tone. And the hand that I seen was completely covered in hair to the knuckles. It was complete hair all the way to where your fingers start. That was all hair.
Well, and I think you made a good decision. If I were to give you one piece of advice, I'd say don't go back to that area for a while, because I think that these things do recognize individuals. I think that they do recognize.
That's what I'm afraid of. That's why I don't want to go back. But
yeah, and I would avoid that area at all costs for a while anyway.
It was the scariest I've ever been. And I mean, like I said, it made me feel weak. I don't know how else to explain it besides making me feel just inferior, I guess. It just didn't, like you said, it didn't seem natural. I think it's flesh and blood, but it's something that's not supposed to be there. I just don't think it belongs in the woods. It's unreal how big and scary. I mean, to make me feel, and I'm not a fighter or nothing like, by no means or anything like that, but to make somebody my size that isn't scared of hardly anything just feel like a kid with a BB gun.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Not everyone reads the Bible, so I get it completely. But there's a verse in there when the Israelites come back from Canaan, and basically the long and the short is they ran into Nephilim, big giants, is what they ran into.
Right.
And they came back and they said, we felt like grasshoppers next to them. And I never understood that verse until I ran into Sasquatch. And then I'm like, oh, I get it completely. I understand completely how they felt. Because you standing, when you're in the presence of these things, you feel like an insect. You feel very small. You feel very, and that's hard for guys like you and me. You know, we're big, strong guys, and you say something will knock your teeth out, but then you run into this, and all of a sudden you're not so big and bad. You're not so tough anymore. And
even with a gun in your hand.
A gun in your hand, absolutely. And so it makes you feel very small. And I get that completely. And I understand the way you felt. I understand when you say, hey, it hurts my pride not going out there. I get it completely. I get where you're coming from. And I think it's very normal to feel that way after you run into these things.
I've always, since I started listening to your show, I always thought, I would really like to see one, but now I wish I wouldn't have.
Yeah, and that's usually the way it goes, But unfortunately, we can't unsee what we've seen, you know what I mean?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But, yeah, if you could let me know about the bullet, I would be more than willing to send it to someone. But
yeah, I will see what I can
like I said, there's hair, and I personally think that's bone, but I don't want to touch it with my hand and mess anything up.
Let me see what I can find out with the bullet, but Clint, I sure appreciate you coming on and talking about it and sharing it, and I know you got a lot going on in your life right now, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you having me on the show. Like I said, I wish I would have seen, well, I wish I could have just got more detail for you, but that's, and maybe I think, maybe I've just kind of put some of it back where I don't want to remember it. I mean, but I really appreciate you having me on the show, and yeah, just if you could let me know about the bullet, I've got it in my gun safe, and I would love to find out if there's anything on it.
I will, absolutely, and I'll be in touch. Thank you again.
Okay, well, thank you, Wes.
Well, I want to welcome Charlie Raymond to the show. He is the founder and lead investigator for Kentucky Bigfoot Researchers Organization. You can go to KentuckyBigfoot.com and check out his site. I've been a fan of yours for a while, Charlie. I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, and if you would, I want to talk about some of these encounters that you've investigated and people have brought to you. So the audience gets a sense of who you are. I know who you are, but for people listening, what got you into Bigfoot? What made you spend time and effort and money looking into this?
The main reason was personal. I wanted to see one. So when I moved to Kentucky about 30 years ago, I established the organization. Oh, actually, take that back. I did a lot of research on my own as an independent, and then decided to establish the organization and form the website in 1997, not only for my own benefit, but I wanted to protect them. And I know, a lot of people say, why do you have to protect them? They're doing great on their own. It's more about their habitat. And I really believe due to urban sprawl and deforestation, that pretty soon they may go extinct. At least on the the eastern part of the states, more so.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you. I think protection on that level, I think a lot of times when people hear protection, they think from us killing them, and that's a bigger task than I think most people realize to actually kill one. But protecting their habitat, I definitely can see that. And so you started this in 1997. What was the toughest hurdle you had? Was it getting witnesses to come and actually tell you what they saw, or what was some of the big hurdles there in the beginning?
Witnesses came out of the woodwork, really. I just got tons of witnesses. That wasn't really much of a problem. I think in the beginning, it was more some of the politics and the egos and the jealousy and the stuff in the Bigfoot community, which shocked me when I realized, a couple of times I wanted to quit. I wanted to get out of it and say, forget it, just do my own thing because of all the drama. So that was disheartening. And now I've learned to just have thick skin and don't get sucked into that stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of odd, isn't it? You think out of, You think the Bigfoot world would be more open to people, and they're really not. I think more times than not, skeptics are more understanding than a lot of the people in the Bigfoot world. I definitely get what you mean. One question I want to ask you was, going back to protecting them, how do we get to that point in your mind, Charlie? You've been looking into this for a long time. How do we get from where we are right now to recognition and protection as you want?
Well, ultimately it's going to take a body, and that's unfortunate. I would, never kill one, I don't condone that, but I think that's the ultimate proof, is to have a specimen. But besides that, there are laws in other states without the body, and if we can gather DNA and we could maybe obtain some pretty legit video, and we have credible witnesses like law enforcement and park rangers, which I do. I have park rangers and law enforcement here in Kentucky that will admit that they've seen a Bigfoot. So if I could take this to my state legislators, and ironically, Bobo just talked about this, I think it was yesterday, and Bobo had told me this story. Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul supposedly each had Bigfoot encounters in Kentucky, but they won't publicly, announce that. So that's kind of unfortunate, because if we had somebody like Mitch McConnell or Rand Paul come forward, it would be a no-brainer. We would have laws immediately.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to say, yeah, I don't know. A cop can put you in jail just off of his good word. I had Brian Gosling on the show, and he was, he's a retired police officer. He saw one over 40 years ago, and it doesn't seem to really make a difference. All of a sudden now he's crazy. Prior to his Bigfoot encounter, his good word would throw you in jail. And now he's somehow nuts because he's seen a Bigfoot. Not only him, but several police officers. And it's more common than I think a lot of people realize. Wouldn't you agree with that, Charlie? As far as cops seeing them?
And, yeah, they do have encounters. I was thinking about Whitehall, New York, where the police officers, a bunch of them saw the Bigfoot. And I think that led to the laws in Whitehall. So I was basing it basically on that. If the law enforcement officers are credible, and I guess it depends on your state, if it's a priority, but if our state has other priorities like deforestation, coal mining, and all these things they do to make money, sometimes money wins out.
I think it's being covered up. It's getting to the point to where it's so ridiculous now that they don't just recognize the species, because I'm the same way as you. I mean, do you want to hear from a judge? Would you like to hear from a cop? What level of credibility is good enough for you to believe someone, as far as their position goes? So it is frustrating. I think there's enough evidence out there to prove that this thing is real. I mean, we have enough evidence to at least show, as a doc would always say, there's enough evidence to prove something's out there. Something's going on. What it is, I don't think anyone truly knows, but something's going on. Tell us about some of the encounters that you've looked into or people have come to you with. Is there any recent ones that you have?
Sure. I've got one here about a school bus driver. This was in the Daniel Boone National Forest. It was around 6 a.m. He had just started his route. Now, this is a very rural area, a curvy, mountainous road. He had no students on the bus. And as he came around a curve, he noticed a large animal on the shoulder of the road. So he slows down and actually comes to a complete stop. And this animal was hunched down by the side of the road, messing with something. Like, he couldn't tell what it was, but it was like it was preoccupied with something on the edge of the road. And to his horror, it immediately stood up on two legs. It looked at the school bus, then spun around and took 2 steps off into the woods. And the guy, the school bus driver, was in shock, and he did not expect that. And he said this thing was covered in hair. It had greenish yellow eyes. The hair was a grayish brown, about 7 foot tall, very wide at the chest. He goes, I've never had any interest in Bigfoot prior to this incident. He goes, but after seeing it with my own eyes, it changes you. Because what I saw was real. And then he adds, I put the bus in gear, and I went to the first house, which is, right down the street, and I picked up this young girl, and I said, you're not going to believe this. You won't believe what I just saw. And he told, the young girl what he just saw, and guess what the young girl says to him?
She's already seen it.
She says, yes. She goes, oh, we see it all the time.
I wonder what it was doing. I wonder if it was eating food on the side of the road or what was going on. Did he describe the face or anything?
Yeah, I asked him specifically about the face. He said it had hair, covered all around its face, but he couldn't see any details, except for the greenish yellow eyes. It was, the headlights, where it was hitting it was a little bit lower in the body, so the lights weren't on its face. And it was only for a second. It wasn't like the creature stared for a lengthy time. It spun basically in one motion. It glanced at the bus, spun at the hips, the waist like you hear, and took off. So it was real quick. It did have a flat face, though. I asked him, did it have a muzzle? And he said, no, it was a flatter face. It reminded him a little bit of how a gorilla's head sits on its body. Sometimes you hear Bigfoots have large heads and so forth. And he said this one seemed like the head was like a gorilla sitting on a massive body, the proportion. He was really credible. I try to ask a few questions, a couple of leading questions sometimes to see if they're making this up, and he wouldn't bite. He stuck to his story. Because when I asked him specifics about the mouth or the nose, he goes, well, I couldn't tell you. I didn't see it. It was too quick.
That's really interesting. And you wonder what's going on around in that area, especially if all the neighbor girls like, oh yeah, I've seen it. You know what I mean? Makes you wonder why they're in that area. Right.
And I've got another encounter here. This one was a pretty terrifying encounter. It was actually an older encounter, but the witness is an adult now, and he actually came to a library presentation, and he shared this encounter at the end of the presentation, and everybody was stone-faced, and their jaws were wide open, just in disbelief about this encounter. And a couple of young girls kind of chuckled next to him, and he never wavered. He just kept going with this encounter, and his wife, who was sitting next to him, said, this man doesn't lie. I've known him my entire life, and you could take it to the bank. But he just told the story like he's told it, probably 100 times. When he was a teenager, they would go out for joyrides. And one night around 1 a.m., they decided they were hungry, so they wanted to go to his house, but they didn't want to pull the truck up to the house. So there's a long dirt road going through the woods, and they decided to park in the woods on this dirt road. And his friend said, you stay in the truck, which at the time he did not want to stay in the truck. And they had to convince him to stay in the truck. I said, listen, shut the lights off. Don't make any noise. Just sit here. If something happens, you could blow the horn, but don't move. We'll be right back. We'll go up to the bedroom window, and we'll tap on the window and get your sister to go in the kitchen and get us some food. So he reluctantly, agreed to do this, and he's sitting there for a while, and he's looking over in this field. Now this is a full lit night with the moon. I mean, the moon was out full force, so you can see pretty good. And he sees this upright figure walking through this meadow. And it was kind of foggy, so when the fog would go in and out, he would lose sight of it, and he'd look away, and he'd think, well, maybe that's nothing. Then he'd look back, and then he sees it again. And he's getting a little nervous, so he's watching it, and it comes over to the road, well in front of the truck, way up in front of the truck, and the road, he said, actually had a fork in it up there. And he thought, well, maybe this is a hunter. Maybe he's going to take that fork and go the opposite way. So he's watching it. Well, no, this thing comes walking right towards him. And it's getting closer. It's getting larger. It's getting larger. And again, there's no lights on the truck. There's no headlights. There's no interior lights. He's just sitting there motionless. The thing gets about 30 yards in front of the truck. And you can tell from the moonlight, it was covered in hair, about 7.5 feet tall, typical 3 foot broad shoulders, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the teen panics and he lays on the horn. And when he lays on the horn, the creature puts its hands over its ears and lets out a scream. The teenager, of course, freaks out even more, and he slides down into the floorboard of the truck, and he hides. And a few seconds later, the creature walks around the truck to the back of the truck, and he feels it shake the truck violently, and then it stops. So the boy looks up he inches up and looks in the rearview mirror, and he can see hairy legs in the back of the truck. The creature's in the back of the truck, the bed of the truck. And as he's sitting there, all of a sudden, this huge hairy arm slaps the front windshield of the truck and lays there, right across the front windshield. And this is amazing. He said, from the moonlight, I can see the perspiration through the hair on its arm. I can see the muscle through the hair of its arm. It had black fingernails. And as he's looking at it, he then glances over to the driver window, which is up. It sticks its face down and looks in the window at him. And he's already nervous. He's already upset. And then he gets another shock. He said, the creature looked calm. It looked peaceful. I got this impression that it's not going to hurt me. It had a human-like face, but typical wide, flat, hooded nose. And then the creature, it slowly opens its mouth, and he can see canines on both sides, and he can see the saliva spread as it opens its mouth. And just then, luckily his friends start coming down the road, and the creature takes off and runs. And when they get there, the boy's in shock, and they ended up taking him in the house, telling the parents and everything. And just an amazing, amazing story.
Yeah, that is. And he said that happened many years back, but he's just now talking about it.
Yeah, he told friends and family, but nobody believes him. Typical, so he doesn't share it publicly. This is the first time he shared it publicly in front of a lot of people. We had like 50 people there, and he shared the story. And then we actually videotaped him on location. And if you go to our website, the KentuckyBigfoot.com, under videos, you could see his testimony there.
I'd love to see it. Very strange. And you wonder why it came up the way it did. If it was just pissed and it was like, I'll put it into this real quick, or what was going on there. What was his impression? That's weird. He said he didn't get the feeling like it was going to hurt him.
Yeah, he said it was only about 16 to 18 inches from his face, so he was very close to it. Let's see what else he said. He said he saw its gums, he saw its tongue, he saw the saliva dripping inside. He saw canines plainly. We get a lot of questions about that. I'm sure you do, about Bigfoots having fangs or whatnot. Eyewitnesses explain they have flat teeth, like squared off teeth. But then I do get a lot of witnesses that say they see canines, long canines. It was pretty interesting. He had a good view of it.
There is. It's odd. Do you get a lot of different descriptions there in Kentucky, like facial descriptions?
I do. But I'll say the majority of these reports that are close encounters, the people say they look more human, that they were shocked how human-like the creature was. And then, the other thing is, and I always talk about this, every report I've taken that were close encounters, it has a wide hooded nose. And, that's one thing that I keep going back to, that I think these things are much closer to us than a gorilla.
And you think that because of the nose, mainly? The
nose, the human-like features, the intellect, which we all hear how smart they are. You've heard of Scott Nelson's his analysis of the Sierra Sounds, how they have a language and so forth. So I just believe they are much closer to us than apes, is my belief, based on some of this description.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I know what you mean. I had Scott Nelson and Ron Moorhead on, and Scott talked about that language, but I tend to agree with you. I think that they are closer to us than, probably a great ape or, a great ape, which is the closest thing to us. What other reports have you gotten out of there?
This is a really good report. This is actually recent. And I'll tell you this county, it's called Hart County. It's not too far from Mammoth Cave. And in Lauren Coleman's book, Mysterious America, he writes about Monkey Cave Hollow. And I think it was in the 1700s when the settlers came in there to that region, they killed these monkey men. And perhaps some of these monkey men survived, because I've got dozens of eyewitness reports all around Hart County and Mammoth Cave area. And this report just came in just a few months ago. This lady was working the night shift, and it was an early foggy morning, and she's doing about 50 miles an hour down this 2-lane country road, and she noticed some large eyes on the left side of the road. So she slowed down to about 40 miles an hour because she thought it was a deer. And when she approached it, the eyes were shiny yellowish green again. And then the creature stood up on 2 legs, and it was over by a fence post, to the left of her. She never did stop all the way, but she kept watching it. And it was a dark silhouette with broad shoulders on 2 legs. And as she went by it, she looked in the rearview mirror, and it ran across the road behind her vehicle. And what I love about this report is I kept trying to contact her. So I wanted to get out there right away, to look for tracks and so forth. And I finally got a hold of her. But before I can get a hold of her, she calls Fish and Wildlife. And she goes, "I saw a large animal last night." And the officer responded, "Well, we've been receiving reports of large animal in the area." And the witness says, "Well, I kind of think it was a Bigfoot." And the officer replied with a chuckle, "I really shouldn't tell you this, but that's what people have told us."
That's really interesting. And those guys know more than they say. I don't care what anyone says. Those guys know more than what they say. That's really fast. Do you ever get any Dogman reports out there? Or do you even take those?
Yeah, I do. I've got 2 really good Dogman reports. One of them was I got a teenager. She was a senior in high school, and she did not contact us. Her husband, she's since married, and her husband contacted us, and we went out there to meet them at the property. They live in their parents' house. They're a little bit older now, in their 20s, and she was very reluctant to come out of the house. He had to go out, go inside and get her and coax her into coming out to talk to us about her encounter. I think, it's funny. I think this report I'm about to tell you, I think you've got it on your Sasquatch Chronicles somewhere in your archives.
Oh, okay.
But basically, I'll tell you briefly what happened. She was going to the school bus. It was dark out. There was a security light on the house, so it lit up part of the dirt road, the driveway. And, in Kentucky, the driveways are long, long dirt roads for driveways. She smelled like rotten eggs. She thought, that was kind of weird. So she kept walking. And then she hears some rustling on the right side of the drive. And she stops, thinking it might be an animal. So she stops. And this creature comes out of the tree line and stops in the center of the driveway. I'm guessing 30 to 50 yards in front of her. It was not right in front of her, but enough to where she can see it. And when she saw it, she let out a gasp. And when she let out the gasp, the creature turned and looked at her, and it snarled. And she said this thing had a muzzle like a dog. It had pointed ears on the top of its head. The legs were bent backwards like a dog's. I think it had long fingernails. I'll have to go back and look at the report. It's been a while, but then the thing sprang off the road. She could hear it running through the trees. And then since then, they've had other stuff happen where back then the parents had like 50 cats. Her mom was like, crazy cat lady. And then within a couple of weeks, every cat disappeared. And one evening, the young couple, they were watching a movie, and they heard something hit the back of the house. So the boy gets up with a flashlight, looks out the window, and he sees these eyes looking over a stump, and they would duck down. So then he took the flashlight, and he would hit the house with the flashlight, and the eyes would pop up again above the stump. I forgot to mention one thing. When they heard that thing hit the house, they heard a cat scream. So whatever it was sounded like something threw a cat against the side of the house. It's kind of what he envisioned. But
yeah,
eventually the creature, he lost contact with it. We go out there. I said, well, show me where the stump is. I got a picture on my website somewhere. It wasn't a stump like you think, like 2 feet off the ground. This was 5 feet high. The tree was cut off. I could just barely look over the stump. So, the eyes were, large, wide set. So that was pretty cool. That was a good Dogman report we took. And then another Dogman report we took was from a nurse. He's also a chiropractor. I'm sorry. Yeah, chiropractor. He was, if I get it right, he's a nurse / chiropractor. Been doing it for like 25 years. Very credible. A parent at my school found out what I do, and they said, you got to talk to this guy. I work with him at the hospital. He's no nonsense. I mean, whatever he says, you could take to the bank because he doesn't really talk a lot. He's very serious. But he said he saw something out by his house. So after months of playing phone tag and so forth, he agreed to let us out to his house. And basically what happened was early one morning, he sees something walking down this road in front of his house, and he described it as your typical Dogman with a muzzle, had pointed ears like a German Shepherd. Its legs were bent backwards. It was kind of bobbing up and down as it would walk. He described the gait. Now, this guy's a nurse, and he's also a chiropractor, so he knows what gait is. He knows anatomy. And it walked by the mailbox, so he ran over to another window to get a better look, and then he lost sight of it. So then, the sun was just coming up, so he ran outside on his front yard, and he couldn't find it. So then he ran out to the crossroad. He actually lives at an intersection there, a little crossroad, and he ran out to the little intersection and looked. The creature now is on all fours, walking away from him on this field. And the creature turned its head and looked back at him. And he said, this is the same creature he saw about a month prior, coming home late one evening. It ran in front of his car, and it was long black flowing hair. It was galloping on all four legs with a muzzle, wide front shoulders, a narrow hips, and it ran right in front of his car about a month prior to this sighting.
What's your take on the Dogman, Charlie? I mean, I get those reports too, and I believe people. I mean, I've never seen one, but one thing I can tell you is reports are, for the most part, very consistent. There's always some small details that are a little bit different, but I mean, for the most part, everyone's describing the same thing. What's your take on that?
Well, it could be some deviation of a Bigfoot, maybe, or somewhere, where through adaptation over the thousands of years, the genes or whatever changed, or it branched off, or maybe it's totally different, completely different. I have no clue. And people say they're evil. We got a report down in South Kentucky. There's a very well-known story about a Dogman killing a family in a campground in LBL. And I don't know if that was a true Dogman, killing, or was it a bear? I don't know.
Well, for the audience, would you recount that story? Because there's probably a lot of people that don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, there was a family camping down in LBL. When officers arrived, their bodies were shredded. I think one of the bodies was up in a tree. The camper was torn apart. The only red flag for me is the person who first shared this story. I think she worked at a gas station or convenience store, and she said that the officers came in and told her the story. And I don't understand why officers would share the details of something so horrific with just a pedestrian, basically. And I mean, why would they share those details with her? But that's the story, basically, that this thing killed his family. I'm not 100% confident in that, but.
No, I hear you. But, you do get a lot of those reports sometimes where you're like, I'm not sure what to make of this, especially killing, when people have been killed. And it's kind of a fine line you have to walk sometimes, especially if you start getting involved in that, because you have to remember people died too. And I don't know the story about the LBO. That's why I asked you about it. Do people come to you with strange, odd things like lights or just really odd, almost paranormal? I know you're a flesh and blood guy, and I am too. But do people come to you with really odd, strange encounters, and you're not really sure what to do with it?
Very few, but I do receive some. And the fact is, I just received one from a researcher who contacted me, and he's in an area of known Bigfoot reports, and that's why he's there. He was receiving tree knocks, and as he was leaving the area, he looked back across the creek, and he saw this glowing ball of light, not too high, maybe 3 foot off the ground, and it was just receding back into the forest. And he goes, "What? I know it wasn't a flashlight. I've seen flashlights. You can see the beam of light. It wasn't a flashlight." And it was right from where the tree knocks were coming from, right where I was just at. So he goes, "I don't know what that was, but I'm just telling you what I saw." And then I had a good friend of mine who's he's a pilot. He's an air marshal and very intelligent man. He was on an expedition in the Fraser Land here in Kentucky, which it's a well-known area of Bigfoot reports and history of odd things, Bigfoots and Black Panthers and all this stuff. But anyway, lots of Bigfoot reports. I've experienced my own interactions there, some really good, strong interactions. So I know they're there. And he comes back to me that evening. He goes, "Charlie, I saw this glowing ball of light in the woods. It started out small. It grew, like it expanded to like the size of a basketball, and then it shrunk back down." He goes, "I can't tell you what that was."
Yeah, it's odd, and I don't know what to make of stuff like that. I mean, I've even seen the lights. I've filmed them, and I have no idea what it is. No idea. It's just odd. It's very strange. I'd never seen anything like that before. And it's easy to kind of boo-hoo these people until you actually see it. When you see it, all of a sudden now it's, not so crazy anymore. And so, over the years, I've really chilled out on a lot of things because I don't want to open my mouth and then be proven an idiot later. You know what I mean? Like I did with the lights. I used to always say, no, I don't know about that. And I wouldn't really pay attention to it, and then when it happens to you, all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, tell me about the lights. And, I think the more you get out there, the more weird you start to realize some of these areas are. And it's fascinating. What do you think Sasquatch is? If someone were to ask you, Charlie, what is Sasquatch? What would you say to them?
Well, I think it's a hominid. It's probably an ancestor from one of these fossils that we found. Is just not gone extinct. We got these giant human-like skeletons that we find all the time, and we just attribute them to giant humans. We've got other fossil records. It could be one of these that we're just overlooking. That's not gone extinct. There's no telling, until unfortunately we have a body, we won't know.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem, I think, when you And again, I respect what you're talking about with protection. I agree with you on it. Something has to be done because we are encroaching more and more and more. But I honestly think it's going to take a body, because you can't get disclosure when no one know. I mean, I'm sure the government knows what they are, but no one knows what they are. And until they come out and say what they are, or until, like you say, we have a body, I just don't see it moving any further. It's that last hurdle of getting a body. And I don't think anyone truly takes pleasure in saying, hey, one of these things should be executed so that we can prove it to the world. You know what I mean? But it is what it is.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's frustrating, isn't it, after being in this for so long?
Oh, yeah, because, when, before Ketchum came out with the DNA, before all that stuff happened, I was telling everybody I knew, just wait. We've got DNA now, and wait till you see the results, and all that fell through. And now the problem is, Sykes with all the bear DNA crap that was, and I just believe he had bear samples basically. But I just think in the video, and there's all this new video, all this video out and stuff. It doesn't matter now. It doesn't matter if we get DNA, we get video. None of it is all going to be poo-pooed. You got to have a body, and it's unfortunate. But I kind of give up sometimes, getting in my soapbox and preaching about why I do this, because you feel like sometimes you have to defend yourself to, especially people that look at you funny. And I've learned to not talk about it and just shrug it off.
Yeah, I think that's what you have to do. I think with a lot of people, especially major skeptics, I just tell them, hey, listen, I'm with you 100%. I get it. You've been hunting your whole life. You've never run into one. I completely get it. But take 6 months and look into it. Look at the evidence. Just take 6 months and look into it. And then after 6 months, if you think it's all nonsense, I'll hear you out. And a lot of times they'll come back and say, and it won't even take 6 months. After about a month, they'll come back and go, well, maybe there is something to this. I don't know what to think now. And eyewitnesses, I think for the most part, eyewitnesses are really our best tool to learn about these creatures, because you get so much from people's behavior, listening to behaviors, listening to descriptions, listening to what the creature was doing. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah. I get excited when I talk to a witness, and they get excited that somebody believes them. They're like, thank God I could talk to you and share my story. And then I explain similar behaviors from other witnesses. And they go, wow, that's exactly what happened to me. And that's what I witnessed. And they get excited. And yeah, the witnesses, a lot of us live vicariously through them, because, we're not lucky enough to have an encounter.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, it is. I think a lot of times too with witnesses, the other thing you'll find a lot is PTSD at some level. And you can always, even when a witness is recounting, I go to like these conferences and everything, and people come up and tell me their encounter. And what's fascinating is if you watch their eyes, a lot of times when they are recounting seeing it, you watch the eye movement, they're back in that moment. I mean, they're right there. People really do relive it, but I come across a lot of PTSD, a lot of, people just short of having panic attacks when they're recounting what they saw. And so it's a good thing to talk to witnesses. I tend to agree with you on that. As far as witnesses go, how would someone reach you?
The website is the best way, KentuckyBigfoot.com. There's a submission form. You could fill out your report. It's just a few questions of what you saw. And then I will then call you or email you. If possible, I'd like to meet at the location, to do the follow-up report. If you can't, then sometimes we just talk over the phone. I'll do a follow-up report and then post it. And then what happens is, which I explain to witnesses, if I post your report in that area, people see that, and especially now with social media, I get other reports come in from that report. And that just happened, this past summer. A doctor was driving from Tennessee to Kentucky. This is Cumberland County, Kentucky. It was late at night. He was on this long stretch of highway, very, very remote area. He hadn't seen a car in the last 20 minutes. And the doctor said, my headlights are real bright. He's got a new car. He's got those LED lights. So when I'm coming around a curve, doing about 70, and I see these deer on the left side of the road. And I'm watching these deer, and then I look over to my right by the guardrail, and we measured this. It's about almost 8 foot up. I saw these large, iridescent green eyes. And at first I thought maybe that's a deer up on a hill. And then as I passed that, I'm looking still to my right on the other side of the guardrail. I see down in the ditch what could be best described as the side profile of a Bigfoot walking. And I saw that heavy brow. I can even see part of the hair from the brow, like, because it's, this is quick, but it's like a quick image of what he saw. You could see a little bit of hair. This one had more bluish eyes. It's the profile, the sloped forehead, et cetera, but it's real quick. And as I pass that, I see a third set of eyes on the right. He said, all these are like pictures in my mind. When I got home, I couldn't go to bed. These pictures kept going over and over in my head of what I saw. And this guy is a doctor in Kentucky. He's on the school board. He said, whatever you do, I don't want you to, please don't use my name because I'm pretty well known in the area. But I also have a degree in zoology, and I studied the echolocation in bats at the University of Kentucky with Professor Davis, I think it was. So I have a degree in zoology. I know what I saw. This looked like people describe as a Bigfoot. And when I posted that report, of course, that spread all over the internet. This young girl calls me, and she said, we were up last night. We wanted to call you last night, but it was after midnight. My boyfriend and I were going to call you. We had a Bigfoot encounter the same area within a mile from where this guy had his report a year prior to the month. So within a mile, a year prior to the month, by a pond, they were frog digging. And long story short, they had to go back to the truck because the kid's 22 jammed, and he had to fix it. And as he comes back, she hears something walking behind them, but she can't tell what it is. She keeps hearing footfalls. And they got to the pond. They walked around the pond, and they looked across the pond, and this creature slaps the water with its hands, like smack. And they could see the silhouette of it standing there. And they both ran back to the truck, and this girl said, I'll meet you out there and show you. So her boss let her off work. She worked at a radio station or a newspaper. She worked at a little local newspaper there. Her boss let her off work. She met me out there in the rain. She had a dress on and high heels, and she walked out there through this muddy farmland out to this pond and showed me where the creature was standing and did all the stuff, for the report, and that's pretty cool that they would, go to that much of a effort to share their story.
Yeah, no kidding. After you take a report like that, do you go out and stay in the area and just kind of investigate the area?
If it's a new report, yeah, I'll investigate it. I'll spend a lot of time there. I'll multiple nights, days. I have a job. I can't stay up too long, but I'll go back if it's recent. If it's an older report, no, I won't spend much time there.
Well, like I said, they're definitely out there, and if you're in Kentucky, definitely contact Charlie, KentuckyBigfoot.com, Kentucky Bigfoot Research Organization. Charlie Raymond, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Wes. I appreciate you having me. It's fun.
Well, I want to welcome Russell Acord to the show. Russell, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Wes. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for coming on. I know there's a lot of things we want to get to. The International Bigfoot Conference is coming up September 1st through the 3rd this year, and I really can't wait to go out there and see everyone. If you would, Russell, would you tell the audience a little bit about the International Bigfoot Conference for people who've never been?
Actually, this year we've added a little twist to it, which is going to be a lot of fun and excitement. The first day of the conference is actually September 31st. I'm sorry, not September 31st. It's August 31st, and then September 1st and 2nd. It's over that Labor Day weekend in Kennewick, Washington, at the Three Rivers Convention Center. This will be our 3rd year running. It's been a lot of fun, but we've added something this year, which is going to be is getting a lot of excitement stirred up too. Is we're bringing in films. Now, there's a lot of talent in the Bigfoot community. Seth Breedlove, Stacy Brown is actually working on a film that he's going to be bringing. Bill and Amy Lancaster with their Cultured Bigfoot, and they're going to be showing their film as well. And I believe Lyle Blackburn is going to bring a film, and we'll be watching that as well. So, and then we've got a couple other things in the balance that are going to come out a little later on for some premiere film work. A lot of these conferences, when you go and you watch a speaker, it's engaging to a degree where you get to listen to their material and you watch their PowerPoint, but nothing screams louder than seeing these guys actually in the field and in action and on a screen in front of you. I can tell you about the time that I walked over a ridge in the mountains, but if you're seeing it on a screen, it's much more engaging and a lot more visual for the audience. So this can be a lot of fun to where they get to see the research very, very visually. So, and these guys are pretty proud of their work. They put a lot of editing and time and effort into putting a film together and making it so nice. So It's going to be pretty exciting this year. It's a lot of talent coming.
Yeah, I know Bill and Amy sent me that Bilco Productions Cultured Bigfoot. He sent me a copy of it to write a review. That guy can put together a film. I was pretty impressed with it, the way he put together that whole thing.
You just reminded me. He asked me to put together a review as well, and I have been so busy, and I've not done that, and I need to do that for him because he was nice enough to send me a copy of that as well, and I watched it. And I love the twist on it because it's not about what Bill and Amy did as far as research. They actually have turned the cameras on the researchers themselves and really got a little in-depth with each one of them. And you feel like when you walk away from it, you know a little bit more about the researchers and them as individuals, not their research as you know, it's still there, but it's a little bit about them too, which is just really a dynamite way to put a film together. So I've enjoyed the heck out of that. And I need to get off my keister and actually write that review for Bill. But I think that's going to be a real crowd pleaser there for sure. I agree with you.
Yeah, definitely. It was good. It was like you said, he put it together really well. I think people will really enjoy watching it. And so it's August 31st, the 1st and the 2nd in Kennewick, Washington. Woody and I will be out there as always. Come by, say hi to us in the vendor section. We're usually out mingling with people. We might do another poker game this year. Just have a good time with people. And we had a blast last year. Russell, thank you for putting it on. Thank you for inviting us. I have a blast every year, and I don't get to a lot of conferences. I know like Squatch Fest, it was a great conference, but they oversold it, and it kind of irritated me because there was no place to sit when you went in, and I got there a little bit late. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm bashing the Squatch Fest because it was very well put on. I mean, and I know the work because I've seen Russell put the work and the stress and the stuff no one gets to see. So I know how stressful it is to put one of these things on. And I don't think that I probably shouldn't have said that about Squatch Fest. I don't think they were expecting that many people to show up, and the place was just flooded. But the International Bigfoot Conference it's tops, man. It really is tops. It's class. And it's not what you expect when you go there. I just can't say enough good things. I'm not saying it because you're here, Russell. Trust me. I'd be like, well, it's okay. But it really is tops, and you do a great job putting it on. I hope you continue to put it on because it's one of the coolest conferences I've ever been to.
Hearing what you say about the Squatch Fest, the only thing I can say about them, it's too bad that it got crowded, but good for them. I mean, I love the fact that I love to hear that a conference has so many people that they're going to have to look next year, maybe in expanding and getting a bigger venue. Now with the IBC at the Three Rivers Convention Center, I can seat 5,000 people in there. So if I ever hit that point to where I'm too crowded, what a great day that would be.
Yeah.
So there'll be plenty of space, and my intention is to grow. So that would be a welcome sight. Having to figure out how I'm going to seat everybody, that'd be amazing.
No, and it's great. There's plenty of room at the International Bigfoot Conference. There's tons of people, but it's big enough. It's kind of a larger scale than what Squatch Fest was, or Squatch Fest is. But I'll end up, even though I complained about it, I'll still go to Squatch Fest next year. And Bob Gimlin, he is working on a movie, The Legend of Bigfoot. And for the audience out there, if they go to facebook.com/the Bigfoot movie, it'll take you right to Bob's page, Bob Gimlin, The Legend of Bigfoot. If you would go like his page, Bob asked if the fans would go like his page. I know Netflix is looking at, he's trying to get it to Netflix for everyone to watch. And I know that's kind of important when they go and look at these pages because they want to see if there's interest. And so if you get a free moment, it takes 2 seconds. Go to facebook.com/the Bigfoot movie and like Bob's page. But tell us about that, The Legend of Bigfoot. Now, this is something different from what you were putting together, isn't it, Russell?
Right. Last year, I took a few months off work. I spent the time with Bob, and I'm just going to kind of evolve into this thing a little bit. It's been years. Bob's 86 years old, and there's been people that have said, hey, I want to do a documentary on you, or I want to do a book on you, I want to do this, I want to do that. But the thing is that people don't realize, as much as they want to do that, it's a time commitment, and it's a money commitment, and it's a lot of things that happen in order to put something like that together. So I took the time off, spent 4 or 5 months with Bob, and I cringe when I think about it because I know I could have done so much better with better equipment and lighting and everything else. But I needed to show Bob that his story was worth telling. And I sat down with him and we did this. We hammered out 2 hours worth of, many, many hours of documentary, but we only have 2 hours of his story of who Bob is prior to the Bigfoot and after the Bigfoot, who he is as an individual. And I have tons of material that I could make 2 or 3 more like that. But that was a documentary we did this summer about who is Bob. But in the meantime, we were piecing together a plan to put together a documentary or a story about what took place. How did Bob meet Roger? What was the trip like down to California? What was the campground like? How did they facilitate day after day, circling around looking for footprints? That was what Bob was looking for. He was a bit of a skeptic, and what he wanted to do was see the footprints for himself. And Roger had been talking to him about it. And the story is amazing.
It is.
But we can't go back in time. We're talking 50 years ago. We can't go back and take a picture of the exact creek bed and have everything line up with the trees and the stumps and everything else and do a historical photograph and reenact it, because it's moved. It's the creek bed, is washed out. The trees have grown. Some of the stuff is washed away, and it's a different scene. So we have to really illustrate exactly what Bob saw and exactly what he felt. And there was some controversy when they showed the film. They were a little disappointed in Bob because he said, well, that ain't nothing. That's just a few seconds of Patty. What I saw was a grander scale. And I thought, what better thing to do than to instead of what everybody on the planet has seen with just through the lens of that camera, we're back behind that camera seeing what Bob saw. And we're bringing that onto the screen. And it's going to be it's been a lot of work. It's been a tremendous amount of work to put together visually from inside of Bob's head what he saw, what he heard, what he felt. And it's a much bigger picture than what we've seen with the Patterson film. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work when it's all done. I mean, you're talking, I thought if I sat down in front of a computer and tried to edit this thing and try to put it together myself, it wouldn't give it justice. So I looked for the best of the best. And I happen to be lucky enough. There's a guy in this town that his name is Gary Hansen, and he's the guy that does my film work for me, my editing for me. I mean, he is the guy, the go-to guy, and he's the one person that I'm so thankful I met, because between him and Jonathan Chambers in Seattle, Jonathan Chambers is an illustrator, and he's bringing to life, between Bob, myself, Gary, and Jonathan, you're talking man hours that would blow your mind. A lot of time and effort going into this thing. But when this story gets shown, and we're going to show it in the middle of February in Nebraska at a conference, and it's a test audience. Everybody that goes to this conference in Nebraska will get to see this film. They are not allowed to replicate it or film it or that sort of thing. This is what we've been working on, and it's proprietary to Bob. This is Bob's legacy. This is Bob's movie. And when we sell this thing, this is Bob's money. Through 50 years, he's put up with the ridicule and the BS and people taking advantage and people pushing and pulling at Bob. But this is all for Bob. And this is his opportunity to pitch it to the network, and that's what we're here for. And the thing is if you go on the Facebook page and you say like and follow, and you kind of keep track and make comments and watch the evolution of this thing finally coming to a final film cut. When Netflix looks at this, or Animal Planet, or Discovery Channel, or anybody that looks at this thing that's thinking about and considering purchasing this movie for their network, if they don't see the interest in that movie, it'll be more difficult of a sell. Yeah, so that's why we put this out there for just a couple of days, and we've got 1,500, I believe, likes on there. But I'd like to see if anybody is interested, have a look at it, hit a like, and share it among your friends, and ask people to keep this evolution going and bring those numbers up for the networks to see that yes, there is an interest. We do want to know what Bob saw. If you've ever met Bob, you can't help but love the guy. He's just he's the kind of guy who doesn't take anybody for granted. He's got a warm smile and a hearty handshake and a hug for anybody who comes in contact with him. And we had this conversation about Dr. John Bendernagel. Very even-tempered, always loving and caring, and the same guy, no matter what room you were in, he was just that caring, loving individual. And Bob is the same way, caring and loving and welcoming. Yeah. And I've learned so much from both of these icons in the Bigfoot world, is to be more like that. And I've taken some ridicule. I've taken a lot of angst for being involved in Bob's life, because people simply do not understand what I'm doing for Bob. And I think
let me address that really quick, before we go into it, because, and I don't want to turn it into a complaint session, but I see a lot of that stuff online about, Russell's taking advantage of Bob, Russell's, fleecing Bob and this and that. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I've talked to Bob. I mean, I'll call him at home and bring him online, and he can tell you the exact same thing. If you think someone's taking advantage of Bob, you've never met Bob. Bob's not going to put up with it. He'll put up with some BS, but he's not going to put up with someone fleecing him or taking advantage of him, or I just don't see it. And, Woody and I are pretty big guys, and Bob knows that. Bob can call, like we're like Bob's grandsons. He could call us up and say, hey, this guy's giving me trouble. And he knows the attack dogs would be all over it. And so this whole nonsense that someone's taking advantage of Bob, I don't believe it. And it's the same thing in the Bigfoot world. No one really has a complete story. Everyone's got an opinion, and then they state their opinion as if it's fact. And other people start reading that and are like, oh my God, Russell's financially raping Bob. And it's like, well, give me a break. You know what I mean? And I've seen, and no one else knows this, but you're actually losing money. I know you've been giving Bob money and you're taking care of him, and I know you won't say it, but people don't realize you're losing money. This nonsense that you're just, you're burning money to stay warm at night based on Bob's life story is just completely not. And you know what's funny, Russell, is in the Bigfoot world, money is the number one issue. If people think you're making a buck and they're not, they will flat out come after you. And, they've come after me, and it's like, what does it matter if I made $1, if I made $1 million? $1 million, whose business is that? It's no one's business. Don't just try and keep your head up with it. Don't get too wrapped up in the nonsense online. And, it used to bother me reading negative comments. And believe me, there's a lot of negative comments about me, my show, everything. And then now when I look at it, I almost feel sorry for those people. I almost think, wow, how sad is your life that I don't know who you are, but you know who I am, and you're so wrapped up in my life. How sad is that? You know what I mean? And it's, I guess what I'm trying to say in my rambling is don't take it so personal. As easy as that is to say sometimes, you can't get too wrapped up in it. You know what I mean? And that's my spill. Sorry, man.
No, that's okay. It's just, it humors me, and then it also annoys me. I think a lot of it where people are saying that I'm fleecing and taking Bob's money are the ones that have actually witnessed it in the past, of the taking of money from Bob and the taking advantage. I had a conversation with Bob, which is very interesting, the other day, because somebody said, hey, they said, well, we had to pay for autographs from Bob. And I said, Bob, I said, are you sure you want to charge people for an autograph? And he looked at me like I had just slapped him in the face. And he said, no, I don't do that. I would never charge anybody for an autograph. And I found out that there was a charge of $10 for photograph, or for to sign something. If you have a T-shirt and you bring it to Bob and you want him to sign it, there was a $10 fee for that. And Bob was unaware. He had no idea that they were charging $10, and he never saw a dime of that. And I thought that was really mishandling Bob's legacy.
And I will back you up on that, because I did witness that one time. It was the very first time I ever met Bob, and it was with his ex-handler, or whatever you want to call it, his assistant, or whatever title you want to give it. And it was very shady. He was kind of back behind the little building collecting money if you wanted to get some. And I figured, well, it's for Bob, I'll go ahead and do it. But it does kind of leave a bad taste in your mouth, to do that. And I always wondered if Bob actually knew what was going on or not. I always got the sense he didn't know that was going on, but who am I to question anything? So.
Yeah, when he found out, and this is kind of news to him over the last month or two, he's angry about it. He really is. He said, who are these people to make money off of, something that I generously give away for free? People send him stuff in the mail, and he'll sign it and send it back. And I'm actually involved in that now. If somebody sends a picture or two and Bob signs it and we send it back, that's great. But what he's been getting, and we simply just send it back, is he'll get somebody to send 8, 10, or 15 photographs. Hey, Bob, can you sign these?
eBay.
That way. And I told him, I said, Bob, they're just taking this and selling them on eBay. And I showed him, I pulled up eBay and I said, look up Bob Gimlin. And I had him type in his name, and we pulled it up and he looked at it, and I'm not going to repeat what he said, but he wasn't happy about it. He certainly wasn't happy about it. I said, Bob, I love the fact that you are generous as you are. And if somebody sends you one thing at a time, let's get it signed and sent back. That's who you are. You're that loving, kind gentleman. But when it comes to volume, let's maybe put a hold on that. And he's definitely on board with that. I think one of the things that gets to me, and it's just kicking my butt, is I'm watching these people on Facebook talk about the sarcasm, or actually they're making it sound like they're talking the truth, and it's just not. Where they're saying, well, you can't even talk to Bob, you can't even get a signature from Bob, they won't even let you take a photograph of Bob, and that sort of thing. And I want to make this real clear. Let's go on record, and I want to make this very, very clear. You go up and walk up and speak to Bob anytime you feel like it. and you ask Bob, I've been at, they say, hey, can we get a picture with Bob? And I'll hold the camera for them and I'll take the picture. I'll do the selfies for them, so they have a better, group or whatever. I don't care. And Bob will sign anything you want. The only time, because of the movie that we're putting together with Bob, the only time I have asked people, the only thing that restriction I put on any of it is do not film Bob while he is on that stage talking about the incident that happened in 1967. Anything else is fair game. Walk up, give him a hug, share lunch with him, have a drink with him. I don't care. That's what Bob feeds off of. And when we talked to Bob about it, he said, well, I don't want to keep giving the story away because it makes it, when everybody on their cousin has a video of me talking about this story, he said he understands that it diminishes the value of the movie we're putting together.
Yeah, and I think for people, if they don't understand that, there's something wrong with you, because if you're putting together a film like this and it's going to be about the incident with Patty, Bob's getting up there in age, and when he goes, I'm probably going to break down the same way I did with Bindernagel, because I love Bob just as much. And but if he's up on stage and he's talking about it, and you got 1,500 people, 2,000 people filming him, and then they're throwing that up online. I get it. I completely get what you're asking. And I don't think it's unreasonable. And no one's walking around. Bob doesn't have bodyguards he's walking around with. I read that online. I started laughing when I read that. Or, someone was grabbing Bob from the back, by his shirt and basically steering him around. And I started laughing. Bob might be an old man, but he'll turn around, pop you in the mouth. You grab him by the shirt and start steering him around like that. He's an old country.
Never tolerate that.
No, he's an old country boy. You don't do that to an old country boy.
Yeah.
And so you read some of this stuff, and you just got to take a lot of it with a grain of salt. It's like, give me a break. You know what I mean? And if people think, come out to the International Bigfoot Conference and see it for yourself. Bob walks around, talks to everyone, takes pictures with everyone. He'll, like Russell said, he'll sign whatever. And he's always there walking around in the vendor area. He's walking around in the main conference hall. He's over. I don't think Bob drinks too much, but he's over in like the bar area saying hi to everyone. And so if you think for whatever reason Bob's being manhandled, come out and see for yourself.
Right. If you look on Bob's page on bobgimlin.net, he's got an event calendar, and you're going to see that he has plenty of events that he's going to be attending this year. And those events that he's attending, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to be sitting right there with him. And if you want a picture taken, I'll take that photograph with you. Or number two, if you just want to take a picture of Bob, another thing you're going to notice is I lean out or get away from that picture. You don't want to picture me. And that was not always the way it was in the past either. I have no right to take any of Bob's thunder. And when you're taking a picture of Bob, it's Bob you want, not me mugging in there. Hey, I'm buddies with Bob. Who cares? It's not me. And I don't want to be in your pictures. I want Bob to be in your pictures. I want you to be in your pictures with Bob. You could talk to him all day long. And this talk about not being able to speak to him or not being able to get a picture with him, these people are talking from a place they don't know what the heck they're talking about. I don't have the energy to stay and listen to every single conversation with Bob. And when I know that everything is signed and people just want to stop and BS with Bob, I'm going to get up and excuse myself and give him an hour to just do whatever he wants. But when he needs me to pull him out of a crowd, if he's been sitting there in a chair and people are going after him minute after minute and don't give him a free break, I will come in after an hour or two and say, hey, Bob, do you need a quick break? And if he tells me yes, I'm gonna say, okay, guys, just give us a couple minutes, and I'm going to slip him out the back door. And if he wants to go to his hotel room and lay down for a half hour, that's his right. If he's tired, let the man rest, But I don't get involved in Bob's business that way. If he wants a break, he gets it. I do not tell Bob what to say. I do not tell Bob where to walk, what to do, what
no
he
one
can
does.
and cannot do.
No one does.
Nobody does.
Yeah.
Oh, heck. Yeah.
Bob's as good as they come. I mean, Bob really is as good as they come. And, if you get a chance, go to the International Bigfoot Conference.com, get your tickets, sign up for the dinner. to see Bob and talk to Bob and all the other great speakers and the vendors. And it's good times out there, man, at the International Bigfoot Conference. I hope you get your tickets. Woody and I will be out there. Come by, say hi. And for the audience, if you would, please go to facebook.com/the Bigfoot movie, like and follow his page, share it around, and let's see how many likes we can get on that page to make an old cowboy happy. Russell, thank you so much for coming on.
Excellent. I appreciate you being on. Hey, before we go, are we having poker?
Yeah, I think we're going to do poker. Yeah, last year was a pretty good turnout. I think we had 3 tables going, and I'll have to do it when it's not scheduled during the dinner. I think I made that mistake last year, but or it was during that time, so we'll have to do it at a different time. But hopefully we'll do a little poker, yeah. Come out and watch me beat Woody.
Dinner a little bit earlier this year, so that by the time people get done with dinner, that we can have the room set up for poker. But if you'd like that same room, Wes, we can get that set up for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people really liked it last year, and if you're a poker player, come on out and play poker. You can watch me beat Woody handily. And
awesome. Thank you again. I appreciate you having me on the show.
I appreciate you coming on. And that's it for tonight, everyone. Remember, if you've had an encounter, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. If you get a chance, check out sasquatchchronicles.com. Until next time, everyone.
Just